in terms of diagnosing dyslexia, we all know that, having a proper diagnosis of dyslexia is very important because, at the end, you get a report that you can use to start the support, and you can understand where to start because you can see weaknesses and trends and all that sort of thing. So generally, in terms of diagnosing dyslexia, like how long is that process taking? Are we talking week? Are we talking hours? Are we talking minutes? What's the process here, Jay? How long does diagnosing dyslexia take in general?
This is a good question. It's crazy, Hugo. It takes about 4 hours, right?
Right.
So it's some testing with a psychologist or a speech pathologist. It doesn't take long to do some tests which can work out whether this person has dyslexia or not. Part of the diagnostic process, part of what we do, is if it's a young child, you need to prove that they have had some help in that area. So let's say it's difficulty with reading. It could even just be that it's very slow or really effortful or inaccurate reading. So it's not that they can't read, but maybe it's very slow or inaccurate. So what we do is we say, well, we've worked out that this child does not have an intellectual disability. That's the first thing that we do by cognitive testing. And then we work out, okay, what about academics? How is their learning affected? Because dyslexia, particularly at school, is really about learning. So you must demonstrate that the person is behind their peers, and that can take time. So like I said, it takes about 4 hours to do what we do. But what we do is we learn about where their weaknesses are as far as academics are concerned. And then we must then communicate with the school. Now, this is the tricky bit sometimes because schools are busy and, there's 20-something kids in a school. But what we need to do is partner with schools to say, okay, this child needs some help with spelling, for example. Maybe it's reading or both. And they need some targeted help with that. Some kids will then pick up and come back to where their peers are. And therefore, that's not dyslexia. It could be that they've moved schools a lot. It could be that for a range of reasons, they fell behind. Maybe it was bad teaching. But those kids who have that intervention, who have the difficulties, really helped at school, right? And still they're behind. That's when we say, okay, this looks like it's a dyslexic profile, or the term that the psychologists use is specific learning disorder. So it's in a specific area, and that can include maths. And we have other names for that, but psychologists call it a specific learning disorder. Dyslexia really is about the reading, understanding what's being read, or spelling, or writing. But dysgraphia and dyscalculia, those sorts of things, are specific difficulties in other areas like maths. So really, it doesn't take long to diagnose dyslexia, to do the tests, but you need to partner with so that you really understand, is this somebody who's struggling because of the way that their brain's wired, or is it something else? And it doesn't matter. If it's something else, the child still needs help to catch up with reading and spelling, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so so it seems to me that there is this formal piece of assessment that takes 4 hours for a professional to administer, but it seems to me that you actually need to, you're like a detective in some way, right? You need to actually understand the bigger and wider context of what is happening in this person's life, and you need to sort of get some info from the school, right? It's like, let me gather some information. How is that child going? How is the teacher going? And like, it's like bringing those pieces together so that you can actually really pinpoint, all right, this is the problem, and this is some of the solution that we can use to address that problem. So if I resume what you said, it's basically you have a formal diagnosis, but it's not just a test. It's actually much bigger than that. It's, I need to talk to the school, I need to talk to the parent, I need to talk to the child, and I need to figure out if there is something that I can see in those sort of real life elements that sort of show me something that would tell me whether or not there is something wrong, right?
Absolutely, Hugo. So, detective, I love that idea. Yeah. And in a way, if you go into schools and there are children who might be having difficulties with learning, you just got to work out why. What's the issue there? What are the range of issues? And so importantly, whilst this is happening, you've got to remind them about their strengths. For me, it was sport. I love sport. And that gave me the confidence. And at school, it gave me a little bit of social sort of capital to be able to say, yeah, I'm good at this. And other kids looking at me and going, you're good at that. So the strengths, or it could be, it might not be sport. It could be something else for dyslexic people, like IT, you know, or creativity. Have you ever heard of Vincent Fantuzzo, who's a dyslexic artist?
Oh, yeah. He went on a ABC, right? About his story about being dyslexic.
Amazing talent, and he should have been doing stuff at school, but he was drawing, you know. And wow, what an artist! What an artist! If you're interested, watch his story. If you're a parent thinking about the challenges, so it's a real good example of, man, this guy is talented. And also, he had real struggles. They're real. And so we all have struggles, but it's important to remember that they are there. They need support. So, the diagnostic piece, it's working with schools, so important. And usually you'll find people who are having difficulty at school, even in high school, maybe even with some behavior problems. There's an underlying learning challenge there that they're trying to hide sometimes. So going in there and finding out why and finding out how to get around it can really help. But like I said, the strengths, you've got to remember that, because it's so hard for us to self-reflect. Hugo, I don't know about you, mate, but you know, if you're turning up to something and you're finding it hard, you just want to stop doing it. And many kids want to be seen as, they'd much rather be the naughty kid than the kid who's struggling with learning. So,
absolutely.
for me, I was a good kid, but you know, I would try and avoid the writing and the spelling and those sorts of things and get around it.
No, absolutely. And you know, as a kid, specifically in the social context, when you're with your classmate, you definitely don't want to be seen as different, right? You want to be like, you want to be part of the group, right? You know, that's what social thing is about, right? You want to be the same. If you're different, then that's not great.